Been extremely unfair to you, I think.
Who was they, though? We can't say who they is, can we?
Press. I'm not using I don't use the word as the way I guess you guys use. I'm talking about.
It is them, though, isn't it? I mean, because because when you think about it, consider it. In 2018.
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about? Are you leaving?
Are you afraid of the press?
He's gone. I'll say it right now. You guys want to bring that stuff up? And then
have
think
the
we're not going to have a conversation?
Like have the discussion.
Like you think Ye's going to come in here and say, here's my pain, here's my suffering. I'm going to say, I hear you. And then he's going to say, and it was Jewish people. And I'm going to be like, okay, but don't you consider, it's like, I'm not going to do this. I refuse.
That was, of course, Ye, formerly Kanye West, walking off the set of popular podcaster Tim Pool's show. How about that, Briahna?
Yeah, so this was one of the, if not the most streamed video people were watching on the internet last night. People were really hyped to see what happened when Kanye West, now gives one of these infamous interviews. Not only just because it's Kanye West and we know what he's been saying and tweeting over the past month or so, but because he just sat down, of course, with Donald Trump and had this dinner with Nick Fuentes and Milo Yiannopoulos, both of who are persona non grata. Nick Fuentes is, Holocaust denier, kind of more of an open white supremacist. Not a lot of argument there about how he's defined. And Milo Yiannopoulos used to be a real figurehead of a certain point in time, kind of conservative, far-right Trumpian movement before he got kind of ousted from the party over pedophilia kind of allegations, or that he said something that seemed to be pro-pedophilia.
Not allegations,
not that he did it,
participated,
right?
but that making light of it.
Like making exactly,
which is very funny, given that that's now like the number one issue of people on the right is
exactly. So it's weird
rumors.
to see these two back. Obviously, Donald Trump got in a lot of heat for sitting down with both of them. He said he didn't know who Nick Fuentes was and disavowed it and said it was just because of Kanye. But in this interview, we get a little context for how that meeting even came to be. Apparently, Milo and Fuentes reached out to Alex Jones, who then asked Kanye if he could give them their contact information. And Kanye seems to be weirdly like a ship in the sea buoyed about by these kind of grifter type personalities. Not to say that it absolves him of ultimately sitting down with these people and not vetting them, but it does seem like just a weird, almost accidental dynamic set up here by people who are trying to exploit Kanye's potentially mental breakdown or whatever else is happening.
Right. So in this interview, so the portion of it with Kanye only lasts about 20 minutes, maybe less, and then he storms off. And I give credit to Tim Pool here. I've been on a show before. I don't always agree with everything he says. I certainly don't like a lot of the guests he's had. But he had the opportunity to do this interview. We would have done this interview if we had the opportunity to do it. No way you don't interview Kanye. And he challenges him. Kanye starts saying immediately,
mildly, like it didn't even not to take away from Tim Pool, but it's Kanye gets up and walks off at the mildest of pushback.
Yes.
It's not even really pushback. It's just like, can you contextualize why it is that you keep attributing to Jewish people things that individual Jewish folks have done to you?
Right. That's what it is very clear. That's the line Tim was trying to take. That when you're railing against Jewish people, it sounds like you mean specific Jewish people and maybe the corporate media itself, which, yes, sure, does comprise many Jewish people, but it's not their, I assume where you would have gone, it's not because they're Jewish.
Yeah.
It's not their Jewishness.
Yeah.
It's not there's nothing, and then, right, because some of the other more far-right, explicitly white nationalist people, Nick Fuentes might be among them, I'm not sure precisely what his views are, will then attribute that to genetic characteristics or like the brain shapes of Jewish people, that really, scientific racism that is a part of anti-Semitic white nationalist belief. Yeah. So that's something you could have asked him about. But yes, like you said, he leaves with just the littlest bit of like, well, wait, hold on a minute. And I think that speaks to the hollowness of some people who rail against, I've been silenced, I've been canceled. Well, you say you want to speak, you say you're being stopped from speaking your mind. You were just, that went on for 2 hours. He could have spoke, he could have said whatever he wanted, and then people would have disagreed, and Tim would have challenged him, and maybe the other host would have. He didn't even want to do that. So don't whine about being silenced if then when given the opportunity to speak, you shut up.
I mean, look, during the Piers Morgan interview, Kanye did go through that process, right? It was something like a 2-hour plus interview. They went back and forth. Piers Morgan really hit that line about, why can't you just say someone who happened to be Jewish was mean to me? Why does it have to be the Jewish people? And Kanye broke down eventually at the end of that 2-hour clip and said, you know what? I shouldn't have said that, and he gives an apology. And at the point at which he gives the apology, Piers Morgan wraps the interview, which Kanye had been complaining about. The whole time he had been saying, basically, I'm refusing to apologize because I want to be able to have this other conversation about exploitation in the industry and all these other kind of things, which are probably very legitimate. But I'm afraid that you'll stop talking to me the second that we're not going around.
But that wouldn't have happened on Tim Pool's show.
That did happen on Piers Morgan's show, though. So I wonder how much Kanye is kind of reacting to what he's already experienced before. Not that that's an excuse, but I think everyone lost out from him walking off, especially since Tim Pool was then stuck in a situation where he was potentially going to have to interview two rather unsavory characters, including someone who's very closely associated with Charlottesville and that kind of explicitly, the Jews will not replace this white nationalist movement. And I think luckily for Tim Pool, who for context is a very popular YouTube streamer with over, I think, 1.3 million subscribers, wasn't put in that situation.
Right, because they left to check on Ye rather quickly. It's remarkable how they managed to have attached themselves to Ye here. These are two individuals I would say do not offer a lot. Currently, Milo obviously was a very large figure for a period of time. He was supposed to headline CPAC in might have been 2016 or 2017, one of those years.
I feel so.
And then had this fall from grace. And then there were a lot of revelations about really his work ethic. That he was a lot of his articles for Breitbart were written by other people. He seemed like he owed a lot of people money. He was a con. He was doing a big con. He wasn't responsible for a lot of the work that was making him famous. And so he was let go from Breitbart. He was kind of shunned and has not really recovered. And then he's done some weird stuff ever since.
I haven't been following his career since he fell out of the limelight.
I think he identifies himself as like an ex-gay type person.
Oh, I thought he got married. I saw a wedding to a black man.
I think he downgraded the husband to a roommate. Is what he claimed.
All right. Okay.
Anyway, Pool's personal life, I don't care. That's not what I'm trying. But it was more, the complaints about his reporting and his writing and how it wasn't even him. There was a lot of that. And then Nick Fuentes is this very, I think, obnoxious. You can watch his show, see what you think for yourself. Yeah. Very obnoxious, very explicitly racist white nationalist figure.
Even Donald Trump is about that. Yeah.
So that they're able to become the
shepherds of Kanye West's journey for
one
whatever
of the most
he's going
famous
through.
rappers is actually pretty incredible. If they have a talent, it's that.
Yeah.
And
I'll say this. I think it also says something about how vulnerable Kanye West, how exposed he is, because I have had this conversation. A lot of leftists are going to be mad at me about this, but I've constantly been saying there are a lot of folks who articulate a legitimate critique of the two-party system, but it's people like Fuentes and Yiannopoulos that reach out and say, come in my direction. And leftists seem to think it's beneath them to want to reach out and do this kind of handling of people. And maybe Kanye West isn't the best example because he seems to be going through more than just a political evolution right now.
I think he's going through a mental health crisis.
I think he's going through a mental health crisis.
I'm even hesitant to say that he's saying things that are anti-Semitic, but I don't know that he is enough of a coherent. He is. I think he's a kook. I think
think that's true. But that being said,
I think he's unwell.
I do think that if any number of people on the left, I think that if he's taking Nick Fuentes' call, Kanye would have taken Bernie's call. Kanye would have taken left influencers' call if they were interested in that sort of thing. And I think it's really interesting to see how the different sides of the aisle there are operating in these moments.
Yeah, well, maybe someone a bit more respectable on the right could try to reach out, because Fuentes and Milo are really, I'm not trying to just badmouth people. They don't really speak for any contingent of the right. They're not
sending their best.
Wild stuff. All right, we'll have more Rising right after this. Stay with us.